Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Back again with another Knights of the Old Republic 2 guide for you. In this video we are going to be covering all lightsaber forms and force forms that are in the game. While all this information will directly relate to Knights of the Old Republic 2, there is a ton of lore on these forms on the internet. So if you're interested in that, you should go ahead and give it a Google. Alright, so let's break down all of these forms or fighting styles. We are going to cover what they offer, what they do, and which ones you can get. There are 11 forms total, but you will only be able to get 7 of them, and they will be based on what class your Jedi is. There are 11 forms, 7 lightsaber forms, and 4 force forms. Let's go over all the forms and what they offer before we get into which class gets what. I apologize in advance if I slaughter pronouncing these names correctly, but starting with the lightsaber forms, the first form we have is Determination, or the Shii-Cho. This is a defensive style, ideal when heavily outnumbered. Gives you an attack modifier of +1, defense of +3, defense versus current target of -3. So when fighting 4 enemies, you will have -3 defense from your target, but +3 defense from the others that aren't your target. This force form is granted to all Jedi level 11. We'll cover what level gets what and companions getting them and all that right after we finish going through them. The second lightsaber form is Contention, or Makashi. This one was specifically developed to combat other lightsaber users. It's got an attack modifier of +3, but only if the target wields a lightsaber, damage of +3, blaster bolt deflection of -5, and then saves versus force powers of +2. This is granted to a level 12 Guardian, a level 14 Sentinel, and a level 13 Consular. So do note, for all of these forms, when it says saves versus force powers bonus, it actually decreases the enemy force power difficulty class rather than increasing your saves. Just a little fact for you. The third lightsaber form is Resilience, or Soresu. This one is a defensive style developed by Jedi to counter blaster weapons. Your defense versus current target is +2, blaster bolt deflection of +4, and then a weapon threat range of -1. This one's granted to a level 13 Guardian, a level 12 Sentinel, or a level 14 Consular. Our fourth lightsaber style is Aggression, or Ataru. This is best against single opponent, and is especially weak against blaster fire. Defense of -2, defense versus current target +5, blaster bolt deflection -4, weapon threat range +1. This lightsaber form is only for your main character, we'll go into that in just a minute, and it's not available for anyone in the Consular class. Then we have the fifth lightsaber form, Perseverance, or Shien. It is an aggressive form that does not sacrifice protection from blaster fire. It's most effective against blaster-wielding opponents, or when outnumbered. It is least effective against single foe. Has an attack modifier of +2, defense versus current target -5, blaster bolt deflection +2, critical multiplier +1, so the critical multiplier increases the critical hit from ×2 to ×3. It also adds to the critical multiplier of power attack, resulting in critical hit ×4. This one's only for the main character and not for anyone in the Consular class. The sixth lightsaber style is Moderation, or Niman. It's strong in all situations, but it has no dramatic strengths. So attack modifier +1, defense +1, blaster bolt deflection +1, and then saves versus force powers +1. This one's only for the main character as well, and Consular class will not be able to use it. This is the final one that the Sentinel gets, and this one's pretty good just because it has no drawbacks. You have no minuses, there's no penalty. You're not penalized in any area for using this one, so if you were just to slap one on and then run through the game and not change it again, this one would be a good one. Our seventh lightsaber form is Ferocity, or Juyo. This is a precarious fighting style, best against single powerful opponents. It's got a defense of -4, defense versus current target +2, saves versus force powers -4, attacks per round +1, and critical hit attack modifier +4. This one is also only for your main character, and it's not for anyone in the Consular class. This is the last one that the Guardians get, and this one's a fan favorite. Just got a lot of damage possibility, and then this attacks per round +1, that's really good. So if you get this, you can get a maximum of 6 attacks per round with this form. You'll get +1 attack from this form, +1 attack from Flurry, +2 from Master Speed or Fury, and then +1 from the offhand or double-bladed weapons. So if you were using this form, and you attacked with Flurry while you had Master Speed on, and you had 2 weapons, you would get in 6 attacks per round, which can be pretty devastating when you have a high damage output. So that covers the 7 lightsaber forms. let's go over the 4 Force Forms. So our first Force Form is going to be Force Channel. This involves standard meditation techniques that all Jedi learn through their training. So this offers Force Point regeneration of plus 50% when not in combat, and then plus 500% when in combat. Offers Force Power damage of plus 3, and then saves versus Force Powers of plus 2. This is granted to level 14 Guardian, level 13 Sentinel, and level 12 Counselor. So these next 3 Force Forms that we talk about will only be for the Counselor class. So if your current class is Counselor, Jedi Master, or Sith Lord, that is the only way you can get these 3 Force Forms. Second Force Form is Force Affinity. It's an advanced meditation state that allows one to focus the power of the Force more rapidly. Force points regenerate during combat, and it is at a somewhat reduced rate compared to the non-combat regeneration. Since this Force Form only has 1 bonus granted, and Force Channel does the same thing plus a little more, Force Affinity should just pretty much be overlooked, and you should stick with Force Channel if you're looking for Force Point regeneration. So this one is kind of just backseated to Force Channel. At least on paper it makes sense. Our third Force Form is Force Potency. This is favored by Dark Jedi as it involves drawing more Force power from the Force. This offers Force Power damage of plus 30%, but that is at your Force points costing an additional 20%. This one's really good if you're going Counselor build, so you can do a lot of damage with your Force powers, but it will eat up your Force point reserves pretty quickly. So our last Force Form is Force Mastery, and this will be the last Force Form that you learn going Counselor. Increases potency of most Force powers, but drains the Jedi rapidly and leaves them vulnerable to counterattack by another Force user. Your Force power duration is plus 50%, opponent's saves versus Force powers is minus 2, and then saves versus Force powers is minus 4. Force point cost is plus 20%. This one's pretty good, but it does have its drawbacks. It does not increase duration for Wound, Choke, Kill, Affliction, Plague, Force Push, Whirlwind, Wave, or Fury. It does increase the attribute damage for Choke though. So as you can tell, each form will have its own use. Some better for random enemies or groups of enemies, with some being much better suited for boss fights or the single powerful enemy. Know what each one has to offer and match the best one for the kind of fight that you are entering. It's totally possible to play the whole game using just determination. I have done it many times before. But taking advantage of the forms and what they have to offer will definitely help you out in some of the more challenging fights. 4 of these forms you are guaranteed to get: Determination, Contention, Resilience, and Force Channel. No matter what class you go with, you will get these 4. These 4 forms are also available for every Jedi, meaning that your Jedi companions will also get these 4 forms. Sadly, that's all the forms that your Jedi companions will get. Your main character, however, will get an additional 3 forms for a total of 7 forms. These next 3 will be determined by your current Jedi class. Guardian and Sentinel classes will get the other lightsaber forms that were only for the main character, while only the Counselor class will get access to the remaining Force forms. Force forms are super helpful for your Force-focused Counselor build, but it is at the cost of not getting any of the extra lightsaber forms. It is possible to prestige into a different class to get some of the other forms that you wouldn't get if you stuck to your original class. But I'll cover that in just a minute after we cover what forms each class will get. So here is a chart of the first 4 forms that you are guaranteed. You can see that some forms unlock sooner for certain classes, but by level 14 you will have all 4 regardless of which class you picked. We will get these first 4 just by leveling up. Once you hit the level, you learn the form. The remaining 3 forms will be learned as you help or defeat the Lost Jedi that you encounter. If you decide to go Guardian class, these are the 3 lightsaber forms that you will be getting: Perseverance, Aggression, and Ferocity. The 3 lightsaber forms for the Sentinel class are Aggression, Perseverance, and Moderation. Lastly, for Counselors, the 3 remaining Force forms are Force Potency, Force Affinity, and Force Mastery. They will also be in that order as well. So the last form learned for Guardian is Ferocity, Moderation for Sentinel, and Force Mastery for Counselors. Your last form is learned from the final Lost Jedi that you will encounter, which can be a bummer because the final forms are all nice and powerful, but you don't really get them until late game. Now let's talk about cross-classing. I've spoken about this before, but you can prestige into a different class than the one that you started with. So when you change into another class, your remaining forms will relate to the class that you are currently in. So for example, Ferocity, or Juyo, is probably one of the most favored forms for its heavy damage modifiers. Since Juyo is the final form of the Guardian class, we just have to prestige into Weapons Master or Marauder, and we can get it if we started as another class. So you can rock being a Jedi Counselor up until you have 6 forms, then talk to Kreia and prestige into a Weapons Master or Marauder. Now, when we face the last Lost Jedi, we will learn Juyo from them since we are now technically in the Guardian class. Same thing with the other classes. You could rock being a Jedi Sentinel until you have 1 or 2 forms left, and then prestige into Jedi Master or Sith Lord, and now our final form will be Force Mastery. Ferocity or Juyo is heavily favored for its damage and attack potential. If you wanted to get this form but you don't want to be the Guardian class, this is how you're going to do it. And that's it, my friends. You should now know what the forms offer and which ones you will be getting. I really enjoy that the forms were incorporated into the game. It's just another mechanic that adds some depth and customization to how you and your character play in the game. I'd have to say Force Potency is probably my favorite. I usually play Counselor, and it's really hard to pass up that 30% buff to force power damage. Give them all a whirl and see which one you like best. When you start using them effectively in battle, you'll definitely start noticing the bonuses at work. Hope this video was useful to you guys, and helps out in understanding all the different forms and what they have to offer. Leave a comment or hit me up in my Discord if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to help out if I can. Toss a like up on the video if it helped you guys out. Be sure to get subscribed if you're not already, so that way you can see future content as it comes out. I appreciate you all checking out the video. Thanks again, my friends, and we will see you in the next one.